Get Out of Your Head, Stopping the Spiral of Toxic Thoughts by Jennie Allen. Introduction. Our minds are powerful, capable of shaping the way we see the world, our circumstances, and even ourselves. Every day, thousands of thoughts race through our brains, some uplifting, some neutral, but many are destructive. These negative thoughts, if left unchecked, can spiral out of control, trapping us in cycles of anxiety, fear, insecurity, and doubt. What begins as a small worry can grow into an overwhelming belief that we are not enough, that our situation is hopeless, or that we will never experience true peace. This toxic thought cycle doesn't just affect our mood, it impacts our decisions, relationships, and overall well-being. It's easy to feel powerless when we're caught in this downward spiral. We may assume that our thoughts are simply a reaction to external circumstances, something beyond our control. But what if we actually have the ability to change the way we think? What if we could stop the spiral before it takes over our lives? The truth is, we do have a choice. The way we think is not set in stone, and we are not at the mercy of every anxious or negative thought that enters our minds. This book is about breaking free from toxic thinking patterns and stepping into a life of mental freedom. It's about recognizing the lies we believe, identifying the thought spirals that hold us captive, and learning to replace them with truth. More than just a self-help approach, this journey is deeply rooted in faith, acknowledging that we don't have to fight these battles alone. By surrendering our thoughts to God, leaning into His truth, and actively choosing a healthier mental framework, we can experience transformation from the inside out. The process of renewing our minds isn't easy. It takes intentionality, awareness, and practice. But it is possible. We don't have to stay stuck in anxiety, self-doubt, or fear. We have the power to stop the spiral and reclaim control over our thoughts, which in turn transforms our lives. This journey begins with a single step, recognizing that we are not powerless and that real change starts in our minds. Chapter 1. Thinking about what we think about. Our minds are constantly processing thoughts, some intentional, others automatic. We replay past conversations, anticipate future problems, and interpret what's happening around us. Sometimes these thoughts bring joy and clarity, but too often they become the breeding ground for doubt, fear, and negativity. What we think about shapes how we feel and, ultimately, how we act. This is why paying attention to our thoughts is so crucial. Imagine waking up late for an important meeting. Your first thought might be, "I'm so irresponsible. I always mess things up." That single thought can trigger a wave of emotions, shame, anxiety, frustration. As the day goes on, you carry that self-judgment with you, impacting how you interact with others. You might withdraw, become irritable, or even hesitate to contribute your ideas, all because of one toxic thought that took root in your mind. Now consider an alternative response to the same situation. "That was unfortunate, but it doesn't define me. I'll do better next time." This shift in thinking doesn't erase the fact that you were late, but it prevents the downward spiral of self-condemnation. Instead of reacting from a place of negativity, you move forward with grace and a mindset focused on growth. This is the power of our thoughts. They are not passive, they are active forces that shape our emotions, decisions, and ultimately, our lives. If we allow negative thoughts to control us, they will dictate our behavior and limit our potential. But if we learn to recognize and challenge them, we can break free from destructive mental cycles and replace them with thoughts that bring peace and purpose. Identifying toxic thought patterns. Many of us don't even realize the kinds of thoughts that dominate our minds daily. We assume that the way we think is just part of who we are. But when we take a closer look, we often find harmful patterns that have taken root. Some common toxic thoughts include catastrophizing, expecting the worst in every situation; overgeneralization, drawing sweeping conclusions based on one experience; filtering, focusing only on the negative and ignoring the positive. Mind reading, assuming we know what others think about us. Personalization, taking responsibility for things beyond our control. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward breaking free. If we don't stop to examine our thoughts, they will continue to control us. But when we become aware of them, we can challenge and replace them with truth. God has given us the ability to renew our minds. We don't have to be prisoners of our thoughts. We have the power to take every thought captive and make it obedient to truth. The way we think is not just a small part of our lives, it determines everything. And if we can change our thoughts, we can change our lives. Chapter 2. The Lies We Believe. Our minds are powerful, but they are also vulnerable. Every day we absorb countless messages from our upbringing, culture, experiences, and even our own self-talk. Over time, many of these messages solidify into beliefs, shaping how we see ourselves and the world around us. The problem is that not all of these beliefs are true. Some are outright lies, false narratives that keep us trapped in cycles of fear, insecurity, and negativity. How lies take root in our minds. Lies don't always announce themselves as obvious deceptions. Instead, they creep in subtly, disguised as reasonable thoughts or conclusions based on past experiences. Maybe you were told as a child that you weren't smart enough, and now, every time you face a challenge, you hear a voice whisper, "You're not capable. You'll never succeed." Or perhaps you once experienced rejection, and ever since, you've carried the belief that I'm unlovable. No one truly cares about me. These lies don't just exist in the background. They influence how we think, feel, and act. They shape our decisions, relationships, and even our faith. The longer we believe them, the stronger their grip becomes, making it difficult to see the truth. Common lies that keep us stuck. Here are some of the most common lies we believe and how they affect us. 1. I'm not enough. This lie tells us that no matter what we do, we will always fall short. It makes us feel inadequate, insecure, and constantly in search of external validation. The truth: we are enough, not because of our achievements, but because of who we are. Our worth isn't measured by perfection, but by our intrinsic value as human beings. 2. I'll always be this way. When we've struggled with a habit, fear, or insecurity for a long time, we start to believe that change is impossible. We tell ourselves, "This is just who I am," and stop trying. The truth: growth is always possible. We are not defined by our past mistakes or weaknesses. With intentional effort and faith, transformation can happen. 3. No one cares about me. This lie isolates us and makes us withdraw from relationships. It convinces us that we are alone, even when we are surrounded by people who love us. The truth: we are not alone. There are people who care, and even if we feel unseen by others, God sees and values us deeply. 4. I have to control everything. When life feels unpredictable, we convince ourselves that we must manage every detail. This leads to stress, anxiety, and exhaustion. The truth: not everything is within our control, and that's okay. Learning to let go and trust, whether in people, in God, or in the process, frees us from unnecessary burdens. 5. I'm too far gone to be redeemed. This lie tells us that our past mistakes define us, and that we are beyond forgiveness or change. It keeps us stuck in guilt and shame. The truth: everyone has the ability to heal, grow, and start anew. Redemption is always possible, no matter where we've been or what we've done. Replacing lies with truth. Recognizing the lies we believe is only the first step. To truly break free, we must replace them with truth. Every time we catch ourselves repeating a negative belief, we need to challenge it. Ask, is this thought true? Is there evidence to support it? What does God say about me? One of the most powerful ways to rewire our thinking is to immerse ourselves in truth daily. This can come from scripture, affirmations, journaling, or surrounding ourselves with people who speak life into us. The more we feed our minds with truth, the weaker the lies become. We are not meant to live under the weight of deception. The moment we start replacing lies with truth, we open the door to freedom, confidence, and peace. Our thoughts shape our reality, and when we choose to believe what is true, our lives begin to change. Chapter 3. Breaking the Cycle of Toxic Thoughts. Our thoughts have immense power. They shape our emotions, influence our decisions, and determine how we experience life. When negativity takes hold, it can feel impossible to break free. One small worry can snowball into anxiety. A single doubt can turn into deep insecurity, and a moment of frustration can spiral into hopelessness. Toxic thoughts are relentless, pulling us further into cycles of fear and discouragement. But what if we didn't have to live this way? What if we could stop the spiral before it consumes us? The truth is, we are not powerless over our thoughts. Even when negativity feels automatic, we still have a choice. We can either allow destructive patterns to control us, or we can intentionally shift our focus toward what is true and life-giving. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It means refusing to let lies dictate our reality. It means choosing faith over fear, surrender over control, and truth over deception. Toxic thoughts often thrive in isolation. When we keep them to ourselves, they grow stronger, reinforcing the same false narratives. But the moment we bring them into the light, whether through prayer, scripture, or open conversations, we take away their power. Surrendering our thoughts to God isn't about passively accepting what happens. It's about actively trusting that we don't have to carry every burden alone. When we feel overwhelmed by worry, we can release it instead of obsessing over every possible outcome. When we struggle with self-doubt, we can lean on the truth that our worth is not measured by our failures. This shift doesn't happen overnight. Replacing lies with truth is a daily practice, a constant decision to redirect our minds toward what is good. It starts with recognizing the thoughts that do not serve us, questioning their validity, and intentionally choosing a different perspective. Instead of believing I'm not enough, we remind ourselves I am loved, capable, and created with purpose. Instead of thinking everything is out of control, we choose to trust that we are being led, even when we don't have all the answers. The way we think determines the way we live. If we allow negativity to take root, it will dictate our emotions and actions. But when we take control of our thoughts, when we filter out the lies and replace them with truth, we find freedom. We step out of the spiral and into a life of clarity, peace, and purpose. The choice is always there. The question is, will we take it? Chapter 4. We have a choice. Our minds often feel like uncontrollable machines, constantly generating thoughts that dictate how we feel and act. We assume that because a thought enters our minds, we must accept it as truth. When negativity arises, we let it settle in, believing we have no power over it. But that's not true. We have a choice. We are not prisoners of our thoughts. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean we have to believe it or let it control us. We have the ability to interrupt toxic patterns, redirect our focus, and reshape the way we think. The first step in reclaiming control over our minds is recognizing that we are not powerless. Negative thoughts may feel automatic, but they are not inevitable. The more we feed them, the stronger they become. But if we intentionally disrupt the cycle, we weaken their grip. When a self-defeating thought arises, I'm not good enough, I'll never change, nothing ever works out for me, we don't have to accept it as fact. Instead, we can pause and ask, is this thought true? Does it align with what I know to be real? Often, we find that these thoughts are built on fear, past experiences, or insecurities rather than truth. Shifting our mindset requires practice. It's not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine. It's about consciously choosing a healthier perspective. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we can focus on what we have. Instead of dwelling on worst-case scenarios, we can choose to trust in possibilities. Instead of repeating self-doubt, we can affirm our worth and capabilities. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but every time we challenge a toxic thought and replace it with truth, we take a step toward freedom. We are not victims of our thoughts. We have the power to choose what we dwell on, and that choice shapes our lives. When we stop letting negativity run unchecked, when we intentionally redirect our minds toward what is good and true, we begin to experience peace, clarity, and confidence. The thoughts we nurture determine the life we live. The choice is ours. Will we stay trapped in destructive patterns, or will we take control and think in a way that leads to growth and joy? Chapter 5. God's Role in Renewing Our Mind. Many of us feel trapped by our thoughts, believing we have no power to change them. But faith teaches us that we are not alone in this battle. God has given us the ability to renew our minds, meaning we are not bound by negativity, fear, or self-doubt. Through faith, we can shift our perspective from a mindset of helplessness to one of strength and transformation. One of the most powerful truths in overcoming toxic thinking is that we don't have to fight it alone. When we rely solely on our own willpower to stop negative thoughts, we often struggle. But when we surrender our minds to God, we invite His wisdom and peace into our thinking. This doesn't mean ignoring our struggles. It means trusting that we are being guided through them. Spiritual practices play a key role in renewing our minds. Prayer allows us to release worries and burdens instead of carrying them alone. Meditation on Scripture fills our thoughts with truth, counteracting the lies that try to take hold. Worship shifts our focus from problems to gratitude, helping us see beyond our immediate struggles. Practicing faith isn't about avoiding reality, but about seeing it through a different lens, one that acknowledges challenges while believing in hope and redemption. God has given us the ability to take every thought captive, meaning we can choose which thoughts we allow to influence us. Instead of letting fear, insecurity, or negativity dictate our emotions and actions, we can replace them with thoughts of peace, confidence, and trust. When we lean into our faith and actively engage in spiritual disciplines, we break free from the cycle of destructive thinking and step into a mindset that aligns with truth and purpose. Chapter 6. Defeating Fear with Trust. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that shape our thoughts. It sneaks into our minds, whispering worst-case scenarios, feeding our insecurities, and keeping us trapped in cycles of doubt and anxiety. When fear takes hold, it distorts our perspective, making problems seem bigger than they are and making us feel smaller than we truly are. It convinces us that we are not capable, that things will never change, and that we are alone in our struggles. Fear fuels toxic thoughts, turning them into strongholds that keep us from experiencing peace, joy, and purpose. But fear is not the truth. It is a distortion, a shadow that only has power if we allow it to linger. The antidote to fear is trust. When we choose to trust in God, in His plans, in the process of growth, we begin to take away fear's power. Trust reminds us that we are not alone, that we are capable, and that we are being led, even when we don't have all the answers. One of the most effective ways to replace fear with trust is to challenge the thoughts that fear creates. When fear tells us, "You're not strong enough to handle this," trust reminds us, "You have overcome difficulties before, and you will again." When fear says, "You're going to fail," trust responds, "Even failure is part of growth, and it does not define you." This practice of shifting our thoughts takes effort, but every time we do it, we weaken fear's grip on our minds. Another way to defeat fear is through gratitude. Fear thrives on uncertainty and focuses on what could go wrong. Gratitude shifts our focus to what is already good, grounding us in the present instead of worrying about the future. When we practice gratitude, we remind ourselves of the blessings, strength, and progress we've already experienced, making it harder for fear to take control. Faith also plays a crucial role in overcoming fear. When we place our trust in something greater than ourselves, we no longer feel the need to control everything. We realize that we don't have to have all the answers because we are being guided. This trust allows us to move forward, even when we feel uncertain, knowing that we are not alone. Fear loses its power when we stop feeding it. The more we challenge fearful thoughts, replace them with truth, and focus on gratitude and faith, the more freedom we experience. Trust is a choice, one we must make daily, and the more we choose it, the more our minds will be filled with peace, clarity, and confidence. Chapter 7. From Anxiety to Peace. Anxiety has a way of taking over our minds, filling us with restless thoughts and overwhelming fears. It often begins as a small worry, but before we realize it, that worry spirals into a flood of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Our minds race, our hearts pound, and we feel stuck in a cycle of fear and uncertainty. Anxiety convinces us that we must control everything, that we must have all the answers, and that if we don't, something will go wrong. But the truth is, peace is always within reach. We just have to learn how to shift our focus. One of the most effective ways to combat anxious thinking is to take control of what we allow our minds to dwell on. When anxious thoughts arise, instead of letting them take over, we can pause and ask, is this thought based on truth, or is it based on fear? Often, anxiety is fueled by imagined problems rather than actual realities. Instead of assuming the worst, we can train ourselves to focus on what is real and what is within our control. Practicing gratitude is another powerful way to break free from anxiety. When our minds are consumed by worries, we lose sight of the good that already exists in our lives. Gratitude shifts our focus away from fear and onto what is stable and true. By intentionally recognizing what we are thankful for, even small things like a kind conversation, a moment of rest, or the beauty of nature, we anchor ourselves in the present rather than being lost in worry about the future. Gratitude reminds us that no matter what challenges we face, there is still goodness in our lives. Mindfulness also plays a crucial role in finding peace. Anxiety often pulls us into the future, making us worry about things that haven't even happened yet. But mindfulness helps us stay grounded in the present. Simple practices like deep breathing, taking a walk, or focusing on the sensations around us can interrupt anxious thoughts and bring us back to reality. When we slow down and focus on the moment we're in, we realize that we don't have to solve every problem at once. We just need to take things one step at a time. Faith can also be a powerful antidote to anxiety. When we believe that we are not alone in our struggles, we release the need to control everything. Trusting in God's plan allows us to let go of the weight of worry and rest in the knowledge that we are being guided. Prayer, scripture, and reflection help us replace anxious thoughts with truth, reminding us that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. Anxiety thrives on uncertainty and fear, but peace comes from choosing trust, gratitude, and presence. The more we practice redirecting our thoughts, focusing on what we can control, and leaning into faith, the more we create a mindset of calm and confidence. Peace is not about having a life without challenges. It's about learning to navigate those challenges with a steady heart and a clear mind. Chapter 8. From Victim to Victor. It's easy to feel like life is happening to us. When we face challenges, disappointments, or setbacks, we often fall into a victim mindset, believing that we have no control, that things will never change, and that our circumstances define us. This mentality keeps us stuck. It reinforces negative thoughts, making us feel powerless and trapped in cycles of self-pity, resentment, and frustration. But the truth is, we have more power than we think. We may not always be able to control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. Breaking free from the victim mindset starts with taking responsibility for our thoughts and actions. This doesn't mean blaming ourselves for every hardship. It means recognizing that we have a choice in how we move forward. Instead of focusing on what we can't change, we can focus on what we can do. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we can ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of dwelling on past hurts, we can choose to heal and grow. Shifting from victim to victor is not about denying pain or difficulty. It's about refusing to let those things define our identity. One of the key ways to overcome a victim mentality is to take ownership of our thoughts. When we allow negative narratives to control us, we stay stuck in old patterns. But when we become intentional about what we think and believe, we take back our power. If we constantly tell ourselves that we are helpless, unworthy, or incapable, we will live as if those things are true. But when we choose to replace those thoughts with truth, "I am capable, I am strong, I am growing," we begin to see ourselves differently. Taking responsibility for our thoughts also means refusing to let external circumstances dictate our internal peace. Challenges will come, but they don't have to steal our joy. We can't always choose what happens, but we can choose how we interpret and respond to it. When we stop blaming situations or other people for our emotional state, we gain the ability to rise above them. True victory comes not from avoiding struggles, but from facing them with strength, resilience, and faith. Growth requires action. Moving from a victim mindset to a victor mindset means stepping out of comfort zones, making intentional changes, and committing to a new way of thinking. It means no longer waiting for circumstances to improve before we feel happy or fulfilled. It means recognizing that we have the ability to shape our own lives through our choices, our mindset, and our faith. When we take responsibility for our thoughts and actions, we break free from limitations and step into the life we were meant to live. Chapter 9. From Discontentment to Joy. Discontentment often creeps into our lives unnoticed. It starts with small frustrations, wishing things were different, comparing our lives to others, feeling like we're always falling short. Over time, these thoughts build up, making us feel restless, unsatisfied, and stuck in a cycle of longing for something more. We convince ourselves that we'll be happy when we get the job, when we achieve a goal, when life finally falls into place. But the truth is, if we are always chasing happiness in the future, we will never truly experience joy in the present. Finding contentment begins with shifting our perspective. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we can choose to focus on what we have. Gratitude plays a powerful role in this shift. When we take the time to acknowledge the blessings already in our lives, relationships, small moments of peace, growth, and even challenges that shape us, we begin to see our lives differently. Joy is not found in external achievements, but in an internal mindset of appreciation. Another way to cultivate contentment is by letting go of comparison. It's easy to look at others and assume they have it better than we do. Social media, conversations, and even our own assumptions can make us believe that everyone else is happier, more successful, or living a more fulfilling life. But comparison steals our joy. It blinds us to the unique blessings in our own journey. Instead of measuring our lives against others, we can choose to embrace our own path, recognizing that each person's story is different and that true fulfillment comes from within, not from keeping up with someone else. Shifting our focus to the present moment is key to overcoming discontentment. When we constantly dwell on the past or worry about the future, we miss out on what is happening right now. Learning to be present, whether in small daily routines, in moments of connection with loved ones, or in quiet reflection, helps us realize that joy is not something we need to chase. It's something we can experience right where we are. Faith also plays a significant role in finding contentment. When we trust that we are exactly where we are meant to be, we stop feeling like we need to control every detail of our lives. We begin to trust that our journey has purpose, even when we don't have all the answers. This trust allows us to let go of anxiety about the future and embrace the beauty of the present. Joy is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of peace in the midst of them. It is a choice we make every day, to focus on gratitude, to resist comparison, to embrace the present, and to trust that we are on the right path. When we stop looking for joy in the next achievement or the next stage of life, we realize that it has been within us all along. Chapter 10. The Power of Community in Changing Our Thoughts. Our thoughts are not formed in isolation. The people we spend time with, the conversations we engage in, and the relationships we nurture all play a significant role in shaping our mindset. Whether we realize it or not, our thought patterns are influenced by those around us. If we surround ourselves with negativity, doubt, or unhealthy influences, our own thinking tends to follow that same path. But if we are intentional about surrounding ourselves with encouragement, wisdom, and positivity, our thoughts begin to reflect that as well. One of the most powerful ways to break free from toxic thinking is to lean into a supportive and uplifting community. When we struggle with self-doubt, anxiety, or negative thoughts, we often feel like we must face them alone. But isolation only strengthens those thoughts, making them seem more real and overwhelming. Community reminds us that we are not alone. It gives us perspective, encouragement, and the reassurance that our struggles are not unique to us. When we share our burdens with trusted friends, mentors, or faith communities, we allow others to speak truth into our lives, helping us see beyond the lies that fear and negativity try to tell us. The people we surround ourselves with can either lift us up or pull us down. This is why it's important to be intentional about the relationships we cultivate. Spending time with people who encourage us, challenge us to grow, and remind us of our worth creates an environment where positive thinking thrives. On the other hand, if we constantly engage with negativity, gossip, or criticism, it becomes much harder to maintain a mindset of confidence and peace. Recognizing who influences our thoughts allows us to make conscious choices about where we invest our time and energy. Encouragement is one of the greatest gifts we can receive from others, but it's also one of the greatest gifts we can give. Being part of a community isn't just about receiving support, it's about offering it as well. When we lift others up, remind them of their strength, and help them see the good in themselves, we reinforce those same truths in our own minds. Encouragement creates a cycle of positivity, benefiting both the giver and the receiver. Faith also plays a role in the power of community. Being surrounded by people who share our values and beliefs helps strengthen our trust in God's plan for us. When we feel uncertain or discouraged, faith-filled friendships remind us to keep going, to trust in something greater, and to hold on to hope even in difficult times. The thoughts we allow to take root in our minds determine the course of our lives. And while we have personal responsibility for what we dwell on, we also have the ability to shape our environment. By choosing relationships that uplift us, engaging in communities that encourage growth, and being a source of positivity for others, we create a mindset that is rooted in strength, hope, and transformation. Conclusion. Renewing our minds is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing journey. Every day we are faced with thoughts that can either build us up or tear us down, thoughts that lead us toward peace or pull us into negativity. The transformation of our minds requires daily choices, intentional effort, and a commitment to reject the lies that hold us back. It is not always easy, but it is always worth it. Toxic thoughts will still try to creep in: doubt, fear, comparison, anxiety, but we no longer have to be ruled by them. We now know that we have a choice. We can recognize negative patterns, challenge them with truth, and replace them with thoughts that bring life and hope. This shift is what allows us to live with freedom instead of being trapped by our own minds. Each day is an opportunity to choose faith over fear, gratitude over discontentment, and truth over lies. The more we practice renewing our minds, the stronger we become. Over time, peace becomes our natural state, and our thoughts begin to align with who we are meant to be. This journey is not just about thinking differently, it's about living differently. When we train our minds to embrace truth, we begin to live with more purpose, confidence, and faith. We experience deeper joy, stronger relationships, and a renewed sense of meaning. By guarding our minds, surrounding ourselves with the right influences, and trusting in God's plan, we step into a life that is filled with peace and transformation. The battle for our thoughts is real, but victory is possible. And as we continue to walk this path, choosing each day to reject negativity and embrace truth, we step into the life we were created for, one of faith, purpose, and unshakable peace.